Mike Johnson, Speaker Mike Johnson, purports himself to be this holier-than-thou Christian man. But what he is a white Christian nationalist and a fraud. He's also a pathological liar. My name is Suri Crowe, and you're watching the MeidasTouch Network. Let's get into it. What Mike Johnson did to President Biden on Biden's way out the door the other day made me sick to my stomach. He had a sit-down interview with a right-wing media personality named Barry Weiss just days before Biden left office. Listen to this.
Without any personal animus at all. I mean, in some ways, I actually kind of feel sorry for Joe Biden. I mean, he's in the twilight years of his life. He is not, obviously, has not been in charge for some time. And I know this by personal observation, and now the whole world knows it. And it's been very, very concerning to me over the last, year and a half since I've had this position.
Can you tell us a story when you say personal observation? What kind
well,
of thing did you see?
It's public now because the Wall Street Journal got it and put it on the front page. But January a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, I had been asked, I became speaker in October 2023, and there were all sorts of big national security concerns and everything going on. And I started requesting a meeting with the president because, I'm kind of old school. I'm a constitutional law guy. Speaker of the House should be able to talk to the president, especially in times of great national interest and calamity. But they wouldn't let me meet with him. And his staff kept giving me excuses. This went on for like 8 or 9 weeks. I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, he doesn't have time. What are you talking about? I'm second in line of the presidency. He has time. I need to talk to him. We had, I can't say the classified parts, but we had some big national concerns at the time that I was losing sleep over. Finally, I just went to the Hill press corps and I said, the president is not being allowed to meet with the speaker. There's a problem. So they started putting pressure on him. Long story short, they finally relented. They invited me to the White House. I show up and I realize it's actually an ambush because it's not just me and the president. It's also Kamala Harris, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem, the CIA director, everybody. And then, so I walked in the Oval and, I know what this is. They're going to hotbox the speaker on Ukraine funding. That's what it was. This is probably third week of January. We sit down, we're in the midst of it, and the whole conversation, and I'm going, we don't need to have this conversation. The president reaches over just like this. We're sitting right next to the fireplace in the Oval, and he grabs my arm and he says, the speaker and I just need a couple minutes together. Would y'all just leave us alone? And I looked up on the faces of some of the staff standing around the wall, and they're like, oh, no, he did it. So he called it. He's the commander-in-chief. So everybody leaves, and he and I are standing awkwardly in the middle of the Oval Office, right over the rug by that coffee table. And I said, Mr. President, thanks for the moments. This is very important. I got some big national security things I need to talk to you about that I've heard, and I think you know, and what do we do? But first, real quickly, Mr. President, can I ask you a question? I cannot answer this from my constituents in Louisiana. Sir, why did you pause LNG exports to Europe? I don't understand, liquefied natural gas is in great demand by our allies. Why would you do that? Because you understand, we just talked about Ukraine. You understand you're fueling Vladimir Putin's war machine because they got to get their gas from him, And he looks at me stunned with this, and he said, I didn't do that. And I said, Mr. President, yes, you did. It was an executive order 3 weeks ago. And he goes, no, I didn't do that. And he's arguing with me. I said, Mr. President, respectfully, could I go out here and ask your secretary to print it out? We'll read it together. You definitely did that. And he goes, oh, you talk about natural gas. Yes, sir. He said, no, you misunderstand. He said, what I did is I signed this thing we're gonna conduct a study on the effects of LNG. I said, no, you're not, sir. You paused it. I know, I have the export terminals in my state. I talked to those people this morning. This is doing massive damage to our economy, national security. It occurred to me, Barry, he was not lying to me. He genuinely did not know what he had signed. And I walked out of that meeting with fear and loathing because I thought, we're in serious trouble. Who is running the country? I don't know who put the paper in front of him, but he didn't know.
Now that is a blatant lie, but doesn't he sound so genuine? Well, I felt sorry for the president. He's in the twilight years of his life. He genuinely didn't know. People were just putting executive orders in front of him. He was just signing them and he didn't know what he was doing. Give me a fucking break. He did that intentionally as a hit piece on President Biden to stow distrust. He is malignant. Here, President Biden is making a video statement about that exact pause on liquefied natural gas on February 3rd, 2024.
We have to fight for clean air in our communities and to lower costs for American families, including energy costs. Today's pause on new natural gas export approvals recognizes the climate crisis for what it is, the existential threat of our time. It's a threat, a serious threat.
And here's the White House official statement on the temporary pause that was released on January 26, 2024. Fact sheet. Biden-Harris administration announces temporary pause on pending approvals of liquefied natural gas exports. It goes on to say, today, the Biden-Harris administration is announcing a temporary pause on pending decisions on exports of liquefied natural gas, LNG, to non-FTA countries until the Department of Energy can update the underlying analysis for authorizations. And it's quite a long statement, but it goes on. And at the end, it says, as Republicans in Congress continue to deny the very existence of climate change while attempting to strip their constituents of the economic, environmental, and health benefits of the president's historic climate investments, the Biden-Harris administration will continue to lead the way in ambitious climate action while ensuring the American economy remains the envy of the world. Now, does that sound like something President Biden was not aware of? He goes on camera, makes a statement about it. The White House has a page or two long statement about exactly why they paused the LNG exports. Like, just blatant propaganda and disinformation coming from Mike Johnson. And then here's Colin Rugg, who is a MAGA plus propagandist, putting this out on X. New, during a one-on-one meeting, Speaker Johnson asked President Biden why he paused LNG exports to Europe. Says Biden was completely unaware he had done so. The United States hasn't had a president for 4 years. Oh, that's the thing that the right wing loves to do. They love to say that President Biden was completely unconscious, had no idea what was going on. Just total bullshit. Johnson says Biden was completely unaware of an executive order he signed. The comments from Johnson came during an interview with Barry Weiss. Johnson said after fighting for 9 weeks with Biden's staff, he was finally able to get a meeting with the president when he arrived. Johnson says he was, quote, ambushed by Kamala Harris, Chuck Schumer, and Hakeem Jeffries. Well, that latter part is somewhat true because Johnson refused to meet with them to agree to pass aid for Ukraine to defend itself against Putin's illegal invasion. So that part is true. But the rest of it is just pure right-wing fascist propaganda. And it goes on this constant just spin wheel of disinformation that Elon Musk allows to be pushed out on his platform of X. And then here's Martha McCallum, a so-called journalist over at Fox News, who writes, truly disturbing. Speaker Johnson tells Barry Weiss he wasn't aware he'd halted LNG sales to Europe. And I actually responded to her, Martha, you purport yourself to be a journalist. You should check the facts before you put out a statement like that. But hopefully we all know now, by now, that Fox is not news. It's not journalism at all. But this is how deceitful and evil these people truly are. And here's how reporter Rachel Bade of Politico described Mike Johnson in a recent profile of him and Senator John Thune. She said that Johnson is known as a, quote, honest broker who is trusted by Republicans not as a backstabber or schemer. I about spit out my coffee on that one. Well, here's the non-scheming, honest broker, Speaker Johnson, on Meet the Press, talking about whether or not he'll agree to disaster relief for California.
Debt limit, which has been a traditionally really thorny issue. Are you and can you commit that California disaster relief won't have strings attached?
No, I won't commit that because we have a serious problem in California. Listen, there are natural disasters. I'm from Louisiana. We're prone to that. We understand how these things work. But then there's also human error. And when the state and local officials make foolish policy decisions that make the disaster exponentially worse, we need to factor that in. And I think that's a common sense notion. Listen, in California, over the last couple of years, they cut $100 million from forestry management. They cut I think almost $18 million from LA's fire department, putting them into their other crazy priorities. And you had a 117 million gallon reservoir that was left empty for a year outside Pacific Palisades. Those were decisions they made based on whatever their ideas were, but it made it worse and everyone knew it would. And the risk was there.
So it could be linked.
Once again, Johnson is lying and he knows it. And Kristen Welker does absolutely no fact checking or pushback there whatsoever. Like, she and NBC have just completely bent the knee at this point to MAGA and Trump world. And here's Gavin Newsom, who has this information posted At the top of his Twitter feed, he says the truth. California did not cut our firefighting budget. We have nearly doubled the size of our firefighting army and built the world's largest aerial firefighting fleet. California has increased forest management tenfold since we took office. So he is refuting this disinformation. Mike Johnson knows it. He's going out and pushing Trump's and MAGA lies. Republicans have no scruples, and the ones who maybe had a smidgen, like former Intelligence Committee member Congressman Mike Turner, Trump has kicked them out. He has now been removed from the Intel Committee. They are all in on the lying, and they are shameless about it. And the reason that I really wanted to get this story out is that when I first heard Johnson tell this story about President Biden, when I listened to that interview, it actually really caught me off guard because it sounded so genuine. I was actually like shook for a minute. I was like, what? But it didn't add up with what I know to be true. It didn't comport with the facts that I know about President Biden, who is in such command of the facts and how together and in command of the situation that he is. I mean, I follow him very, very closely. I listened to every single interview and speech that he has given really over the last several years, but in particular over the waning days of his presidency. But the average person might not know that because Mike Johnson sounded so convincing. Oh, I was, nothing against President Biden. He's just such a lying rat. And, we really have to be on guard now because the legacy media clearly, as you saw there on Meet the Press, they're not going to push back against these lies. And now with TikTok, you can damn well guarantee that in order for that to get back up and running, which it never was really banned, that TikTok made a deal with Trump and they're not going to boost the algorithm. So you're going to see more disinformation, more pro-Trumpian, more MAGA content, just the way you do on X, which is just a cesspool. Like whenever I go on X, I feel like I'm swimming in a sewer. So just be on guard for that. That's Threads, Instagram. It's just, we're going to continue to see the suppression of pro-democracy content, and TikTok's going to go that way as well too. And we're going to see more disinformation, more pro-Trumpian, more fascist propaganda. So thank you for supporting independent journalists such as myself. Thanks for supporting networks that have independent journalists such as myself, like here on the MeidasTouch network and so many others out there, because we're going to have to be very careful about where we get our information and just use our critical thinking skills, because we're now living under, as AOC said it herself, we're now living under an authoritarian regime. Breaks my heart to say it, but that's really where we are, folks. My name is Suri Crowe. You are watching the MeidasTouch Network. Thank you for watching and sharing, and we're all in this together, folks. I don't know how it ends, but I know that we have to stay in this fight together, okay? Stay spicy and peace.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.